Happy Mama's Day. If you are a mama and you watch this channel, you have my eternal love and admiration. This channel would not exist if not for mamas. Mamas that supported the channel very early on with super chat donations when your man's was quite literally in the corner of an efficiency apartment recording these on an iPhone. My mama, who took me to Best Buy to go get the Canon 80D because I ain't had it then, and has since watched me become the kind of person that can pay for not just my rent, but everybody else's rent. We do mamas here. Yeah. And if you have one, you need to be with her right now, and you can come back and watch this tomorrow, okay? But since you are here, and I'm going to assume that it's tomorrow, right, Monday, let's talk about Deion Sanders and what he said at a Vegas business convention that I think many of you already agree with, but we're going to take it a little step farther. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football. We talk football year-round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question below. Do you think that college football should have a salary cap? There's been a lot of consternation about how some programs have been able to spend money without any ceiling in sight and how it is affecting the competition on the field. We've already reached the point where we went from $0 spent, $0 spent on players in 2020 to now we're looking at least one or two rosters that could be up to $40 million in salary, right? Now, there's a lot of arithmetic that goes into this already. We're getting into the fine margins of accounting when we talk about how players are getting paid and from whom, whether it's an NIL collective that is managed by the university or not, whether it is actual NIL money that is coming from other businesses, or whether it's just a booster that wanted to write a check, right? And we're getting into a place where it's going to have a little bit more structure to it because the House versus NCAA settlement is going to demand such a thing. We're going to have revenue sharing, and everybody's going to get the same amount of money to max spend in the revenue sharing this year, and that's going to change each and every year. This year it's going to be $20.5 million, we think, as soon as Judge Wilkins decides that that she's dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and we can get the rolling on this. We're also going to have roster caps that don't come into effect this year, but come into effect years to come, right? So you're going to not be able to have what Nebraska did in 1995, which is something like 144 players on the roster, which makes you deep, which means you can throw everybody that you want at a football program and still have bodies to spare. This is how the Union won the Civil War. Now, I also think that it's important to note here that the money going up has not been a problem, okay? People are spending money on players because they want to. It's the same reason they spend money on facilities. It's because they want to. If you could get a billionaire donor to give you enough money to build a rocket science laboratory, cool, bet. But apparently if you want to spend that money on the football team, you're doing something wrong. Can't tell people how to spend their money. If they want to blow their money on 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, they have every right to do so because this is America, Jack, and we let people be stupid here if that's what they want to do. Now, you are already going, hey, I don't like these players making this much money, which is a you problem and not a me problem or a we problem. That's a self-esteem thing. You're going to need to go to therapy, get that worked out, right? Maybe take your Myers-Briggs test to find out some things about yourself as well while you're there. But if you're looking at this from a competitive aspect, college football has never been competitive. It's never been about everybody having the same chance to win. In fact, we hate that. I had a t-shirt that said, expand the playoff, you cowards, because I knew that there was going to be a Boise State, a Central Florida that was able to make this thing like Cincinnati did, and then get the brakes beat off of them by Alabama. Now, on top of all of that, where we're really getting in is who gets into the tournament, and that's why we've expanded from 4 teams to 12 teams, because we've had a 5th or a 6th team that should have been in there. Say a 2-loss SEC program that played a pretty tough schedule as opposed to an undefeated Group of 5 program that didn't, right? And we're judging those things because, frankly, y'all don't want to see Boise State play Penn State. You want to see Penn State play Notre Dame. You know, that's just how this is going to go, okay? Once you get your head wrapped around that, you can understand, yeah, you put the big programs on television because that's where the money is, Jack. And that's how we all consume college football. There are those of y'all that can afford season tickets, and I'm grateful for you because you get to spend thousands of dollars to go to home games that the rest of us could only dream to go of, right? I famously didn't get into Owen Field, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, until I was covering the team. That's how expensive it was and how hard it was for me to get tickets in high school, right? In college, because I went to the University of Tulsa, which was about 120 miles-ish from Norman. The point there is, still couldn't afford it. Damn sure couldn't afford season tickets. And by the time I got to OU for a grad degree, I was going there to get my master's in professional writing, which meant I go work at the OU Daily, which is a newspaper. And that's how I eventually get to the press box and start covering the team. And I get to watch the games, right? Not everybody gets to do it that way. Not everybody wants to go into sports writing. Not everybody wants to be a sports broadcaster. Not everybody wants to host a show. They just want to watch their team play. But you can demand these sorts of prices because it's Oklahoma, because it's Texas, because it's Alabama, because it's Georgia, because it's Ohio State, because it's Notre Dame. You can't do that at Wyoming. You can't do that at San Diego State, and the market bears that out. So, are you going to succeed in making this game fair? No, but you can get to the point where you make it appear fair. Right now, college football operates more like Major League Baseball than the NFL, and NFL people, which is where college football players want to go, wanted to operate more like the NFL and not like Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball, who was entertaining a cap, by the way, for the first time ever as their labor negotiations start to come up and they start to lose money from ESPN because ESPN said, I don't want to play with you no more. And that's a lot, right? ESPN's gone all in on college football, the NFL, and the NBA and said, what do we need baseball for? And they got a point, right? Now, thinking about college football, you are not going to sit down and watch the Thursday night game like me. You're not going to watch East Carolina play Tulsa. You're not going to do that. I'm a degenerate. I'm going to do that. You're not going to watch Tuesday night action after the playoff rankings are revealed between Bowling Green and Ball State. You're not. Because I'm going to do that because I'm a degenerate. But I also do this for a living. I rank the teams. I watch all the games. I do an annual ranking of all 100. It's going to be 35 teams in FBS. So that's what I'm going to do, but you're not, right? And that's okay. What you're going to do is watch the big noon game. You're going to watch the Big Ten game on CBS. You're going to watch the SEC on ESPN. You're going to watch the Saturday night game. Then you're going to wake up and watch the NFL. And then you're going to let other people like me tell you what happened in other games, right? That's okay. So knowing all of that, you're going to disperse the money that way. This is why the SEC and the Big Ten brought in damn near $1 billion last year, and the Mountain West did not, okay? So knowing you have all of this, can you make this thing something like fair? You could try. And the way in which people want to try is the salary cap, okay? So a hard cap, like the NFL. In Major League Baseball, you have a luxury tax. In the NBA, you have a luxury tax. You exceed that, you're paying in to have the luxury of this payroll that exceeds the cap, okay? There are already programs that are willing to do that, I can assure you. And they're all programs at the top of the AP top 10 every single year, okay? In the SEC, everybody's willing. In the Big Ten, everybody's willing. In the Mountain West, got to count your pennies. So, what does Deion Sanders want? He wants to operate more like the NFL, which is to say the last shall be first and the first shall be last. We don't do that in college football. We hate that. We believe that the national champion should be the national champion, and we're going to rank them accordingly. They get the soft schedule when we get into the playoffs because they're the one seed. Doesn't always work out for them that way. Just ask Oregon how that might have gone, right? But that's what we do, right? We reward you for winning. We reward you for winning over and over again, and you get to be a team that we think of as winning the more you do it. Clemson is a great example of this. Clemson is nothing like a blue blood. Clemson was sorry until Dabo Swinney turned that thing around in the 2010s and turned it into a juggernaut. Now we treat Clemson like we do Notre Dame, right? To wit, Notre Dame and Clemson going to have a 12-year home and home starting in 2027 that supersedes their ACC agreement, which is interesting because it means that Clemson might actually leave the ACC sooner rather than later. Now, if you put a cap on this thing, you got to have a CBA. You got to have a collective bargaining agreement that is true across the conferences. How do you have a collective bargaining agreement if you don't have a players union that can fight for the rights of those players and the revenue sharing? You cannot. Sherman antitrust. Maybe you want to go do a little bit of reading on that. I realize that Prime is also trying to get his arms wrapped around name, image, and likeness because he has said it's pay-per-play. It's pay-per-view with the kids. You got to get your extension in right away because they will go into the portal or you won't be able to get them to come in if they think for one moment that you're not going to be around. So he need to get his done because I and others thought, hey, he's never not coached his boys. Why wouldn't he coach in the NFL if that's where his boys are going to be? And then he signed a 5-year extension that's going to pay him $10 million annually, in large part because he wanted to assure his players where he was going to be for the next 5 years. Now, with rules and regulations, yeah, you could probably curtail a lot of this. But what we do know is that people will cheat, because people do cheat, because that's what we do. We cheat. It's hard to cheat in the NFL because the 32 owners are colluding with each other, right? They all are in this to make money. They don't really care who wins the Super Bowl. They just don't want to be embarrassed, okay? We don't have that in college football. We got 135 teams, which have about 1,000 GMs, right? 1,000 owners. One guy, it's a joke that Bob Stoops actually made famous back when Oklahoma's population was something like 3 million. He would say, look, there are 3 million head coaches in the state of Oklahoma. Only one of us is getting paid. Like that's just what it is. That's what it's going to be in college. That's why it's so cool. That's why we love it so much. You can impact the game. If you're an alumnus at SMU and you got oil money, you could throw it at SMU and you get Pony Express. You know, Texas Tech is trying to do that right damn now. That's going to continue to go. I think it is noble for you to think that you can solve college football. I think it's noble for you to think that a salary cap is going to curtail shenanigans. It's not. It's really not. The game is too big. The game is too broad. And the game is also too regional for you to have that sort of effect. Not to say that it's not impossible to have a salary cap. It's not. I am saying you might get exactly what you want. And you might hate it.